Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Soenens indeed. So I recently joined Skyline Communications. Skyline Communications is in the business of creating, developing, and deploying network management and operational support systems to the media industry. So I'm responsible for the product marketing activities within Skyline. Who is not familiar with Skyline, if I may ask? A lot of you or not? Okay, just a couple of slides as a company introduction. I will go really quickly on this, but basically our mission is to redefine how operators manage the most complex media networks from glass to glass. So that's a heavy sentence, so to speak, but we go end to end. We go from glass to glass. We manage any infrastructure, any device type, any vendor's equipment, any type of technology, whether it's satellite, whether it's MPLS links or fiber links or SDH links in between. We manage everything from glass to glass. And our focus market is in the media space. Our markets are definitely all related to video contribution and distribution to the homes. I think there's something going wrong with the Mac translation here, but regardless of that, this is kind of our scope. So we have our data miner network management system, which you see in the blue. Around that, we have a lot of application modules, service layers, business layers, SLA layers, etc. And new in our portfolio is our tight integration with operational support functions. And I will explain a little bit why we go that direction in a minute. But basically our core business is network management systems end to end. In terms of customer base, we have a very broad customer base. We have 650 customers actively using our network management systems, spread over more than 100 countries. We have 1,500 systems up and running. So 1,500 networks are managed by data miner day to day. Our company is 150 people in terms of size, and we have more than 125 partners on a global basis. Okay. So this is a very short introduction on Skyline Communications. We're a global player, as you can see. Our roots are in Europe. You can see that on the blue dots. That's where we have a lot of customers. But we're growing very fast in Latin America. North America is growing very fast. We're adding local sales and systems engineering points there as well. And Asia is growing obviously as well. But we are a global player. We also sell direct to customers, so you would often see a data miner product in the NOC or in the operation center, but often you would not see a data miner label on the product because we also work through OEM partners. So this as means of an introduction to the company. Let's have a look at how satellite networks are operated and our view on what we see happening in the market. And if I look at it from a holistic point of view, because our markets are media, so we work with cable operators, we work with telcos, we work with mobility operators, we work with broadcasters a lot, as well as we work with satellite operators. Some of the largest satellite networks are managed by a data miner on a daily basis. I think all the top 5 satellite operators use our data miner system in one or another way. But if you look at it from a competitive perspective on how they operate the network and in which direction they go, I like to look at what competitive technologies are doing. You would see in the news large announcements of investments in DOCSIS 3.1 cable plant upgrades, G-Fast in the DSL, telco world, fiber upgrades, MPLS, SDN, broadcast LTE. So all these technologies are really making it very attractive to deliver video over broadband connections to anybody in the home. The question is, how is the satellite business going to react to that? And from that perspective, it's interesting to see what kind of technologies these other companies and other operators are using to achieve their end customer. And I've put there a cloud. Everybody talks about the cloud, of course, but most often these telcos, cable operators that compete for the same consumers and customers use cloud technology to bring more elasticity in their business, in their technology, to change business models. We see that happening in satellite as well. There's definitely changes happening today in the value chain of satellite, and we see that in other areas as well. And there's a huge pressure on operational cost. And that's, of course, where we play. This is what I think the satellite industry is doing right now to respond to this changing environment. The first thing is leverage the 5 or 6 nines. I think what I see happening is satellite operators looking at all the competitive pressures coming up. They want to stick to what makes their service better than anybody else, and that's all about uptime. Okay, uptime remains central, and even if the technology is changing from traditional, let's say, modulators and encoders and teleport equipment, so bespoke equipment, even if that equipment is changing into data center technology more and more, all IP connected, software functions running on the data center, even if that transition is happening in the satellite space, still I believe that uptime, even in those cloud-based systems, is going to remain very important, and that's what we see happening today. So that's one key trend that I see. The other trend that I see is the continued drive to use resources efficiently. That's been the case for a long time on satellite. Bandwidth has always been very expensive. With the new deployments of HTS constellations, etc., that same demand to keep operational expenses low is very high and very prominent in the industry. And it's not only about the operational expenses in terms of satellite bandwidth, it's not only about operational expenses in terms of operational staff, but more and more people are looking to integrate the operational processes very closely to the technology as well. And there they get huge savings. Today, operators and engineering teams and help desk teams are very much separated. They use separate tools, they're not interconnected, and there's difficult processes to link everything together. Now, what we see happening as a big opportunity for the satellite industry, and that's basically inheriting let's say that evolution from other markets like cable and telco operators who have been under cost pressure much longer already. We see that integration of the network management and the operational processes, that tight integration, we see that taking off big time. That's going to be a huge cost saver for a lot of satellite operators and service providers. And then there's a third evolution that I see here. And I've also called it prepare for the unknown. With all the changes in the industry going on, I mean, satellite operators do not longer have leases of 8 years or 10 years that they can rely on. They have to prepare for the unknown and have the infrastructure in place, both from technology, but also from an operational perspective, to adjust their business model to the needs that will come over time. Okay, this is what we see from a network management perspective. And I'm going to give a couple of examples in all of these 3 buckets and things that we actually do on a day-to-day basis for satellite operators and service providers. First, keeping the uptime as high as possible. I mean, things like having a redundant network management and OSS architecture is the foundation. Having that system being fully redundant is the foundation today. Site diversity switching, carrier redundancy switching. Increasingly we see the use of workflows. Traditionally, teleports were set up device by device. There were not really workflows tied to it. What we now see is people have started to define workflows to set up their services and their carriers. And as part of the workflows, they would also do automation of certain checks. For instance, many people, before the operator can turn up a carrier, it would automatically first do a spectral check if there's no other carrier on that location. So these kind of simple things really become part of the end-to-end workflow. Automated uplink power control is part of the management system. Capacity management, increasingly, so planning capacity up front, making sure there's no overbookings on capacity, whether it's megahertz or megabits per second, is part of the core of what they want to do, because it all has to do with uptime. If you plan and you have the tools to plan capacity, then you don't overbook and you don't have any downtime of these services. Centralized management of carrier IDs is a simple thing, but people like it very much. And then it's all about making reservations on the infrastructure. So uptime is related to having the equipment available at the right moment in time. So it's all about setting up workflows, including reservation and automation of the service lineup. Okay. A new thing that we see also coming up is an integrated confidence monitoring. As people set up services, can be IP services, voice services, or video services. At the same time, they would spin up a confidence monitoring probe to monitor the quality of their service. So we see that increasingly to become affordable to implement in systems. So all of that can be automatically set up with data miner as part of the service lineup definition. These are just a few examples of how the network management system can help to increase the uptime of the overall system. And even if that infrastructure is moving from traditional equipment, which was easy to manage, even with hard contact switchover relays to do the redundancy, even if that is now moving into the cloud infrastructure, data centers, virtualized functions, software-defined network segments, and the high-throughput satellite inter-gateway links. Even if that technology is moving all that way, people still want the same level of uptime of the satellite network. Looking at resource utilization a little bit more in depth, a couple of examples. End-to-end service orchestration has become the standard. Nobody's really setting up boxes anymore. That time has gone. It's about end-to-end orchestration of services. And that includes, of course, key components and key capabilities in a network management system, including scheduling, far-reaching automation engine, being able to define profiles and use profiles in an easy manner, have end-to-end service management and resource management, and of course the complete knowledge of the connectivity in the network. So end-to-end service orchestration is becoming the new standard here. This is an eye chart. I don't believe you can read this really, but it looks probably nice, right? Come on, give me some credit here. So this is a little bit of an eye chart, but what it basically means is the whole philosophy of tying together the network management with the operational functions. And that's where a lot of benefits come from. So at the bottom, you basically see that there's different devices in the whole delivery chain. And it can be fiber optic devices, it can be satellite, ground segment devices, anything in the network needs to be managed. And all of these devices can talk to data miner such that we get an end-to-end view on the whole system. And this is the foundation for any efficient network management and operation. If you don't have a single view end-to-end on your infrastructure, you can forget about all the rest. Okay? Data miner interfaces with any possible device in the network infrastructure and gives that visibility. And based on that capability, what we do is we interface with all types of OSS/BSS systems. And we do that in real time. For instance, on the customer services level, we interface automatically with help desk tools. So the help desk operators have real-time view on how the network is performing. The help desk operators automatically know that there's a maintenance window in a certain region. We interface with inventory databases, with service configuration databases, with interactive voice response systems. Okay? All of that is being tied together with the data miner. And we've learned all of that from operations in the cable and the telco sectors. We see that moving more and more into the satellite space and definitely into the VSAT space, where there's a need for a tight integration of the operational aspects with the network management aspects. Another typical example is, for instance, the customer self-service portals. If you want to save operational cost, you let your customer provision his own service. That's part of data miner. We have operators, even satellite operators like Synctel. If you go on their website, you can provision your own service. Guess what? The provisioning there is done completely by data miner behind that, even through their corporate website. This is how far-reaching data miner goes, from connecting all the devices in the network down to customer self-service portals. Then last but not least is creating that flexibility for service providers as well as satellite operators, that flexibility to deploy any technology in their network. I already mentioned they're kind of preparing for the unknown in the satellite industry. Nobody really knows what services will run next year on their infrastructure and their space segment. So they have to prepare and have operational and network management systems in place that can handle any type of technology, any type of vendor type of equipment, etc. And that, of course, crosses all the bands. I mean, network management is not tied to a specific band. It's not limited by a certain constellation. It's not bound by HTS or not HTS, etc. So you need a network management system, an operational system that can use any resource, whether it's a regular satellite, whether it's a fiber optic feed, or whether it's a spot beam that you use to set up the service. That should be transparent in the operations. And this is what we as Skyline Communications bring to the market, bring to key customers like Eutelsat, Intelsat, etc. You name them, SAS. All of them are using our system increasingly to get the freedom to set up services now and in the future, regardless of which technology is being deployed. This is my short speech.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much. I'm wondering, actually, services like Data Miner are helping satellite to maybe try and sell itself a little bit better than it used to in the past. I'm thinking that, you know, the broadband guys come along and, you know, shout about this, that, and the other. And one wonders if satellites always shouted as loudly as it could have done.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, having a good, let's say, network management and a very streamlined operations will help to sell more satellite capacity easier, more flexibly, even if it's for short-time leases, even if it's for one-shot events, even if you have the flexibility in your operations to offer that service, then obviously the satellite capacity will sell more, and that's a non-brainer.